Hey, I got a bull. Alright, in this video we're going to be brim fishing with the old Zebco 44. And what we're using to catch these brim today, we have a number 4 mustad light wire hook, and where's that? Right here. This is a tiny split shot. Ooh, I ain't done this in a long while. Digging earthworms with a worm fork. So I've got a really tiny split shot and a number 4 light wire hook. I would prefer a number 6, but I don't have any of those in mustad hooks. I'm just throwing out, letting it sink to the bottom, and if I see that line twitch or start to slowly swim off, then I reel down to make sure it's a fish, and if it's a fish, then I slowly kind of sweep up on that hook set. So it's important to not let the fish hold on to your worm too long, because they will swallow it and you end up killing fish that you really shouldn't. So you got to be proactive when it comes to hooking the fish as soon as possible. Wow, what a good sized brim. Right off the bat too. What do you think made this big cut in its side? I'm struggling a little bit on hooking this fish, but he doesn't end up bleeding or anything. That number 4 hook makes it a little bit tougher to unhook because it's larger. He's got a big old gash on his side. This is early August, so the bluegill and shellcracker and things are no longer spawning. I'm still trying to figure out what depth they're in. I'm making casts in 7 to 9 feet, and then I'm making casts on the shore, which are about 2 feet, 2 to 4 feet, and I'm just trying to figure out which depth I can consistently catch them in. So in case any of you have wondered who the people are in the other kayaks, one of them is my dad and the other is my brother. We're all fishing the same lakes, and my brother's bass fishing. The first fish was caught in about 4 foot of depth, and this fish was caught in about 3 foot of depth. So, and they're both caught somewhat close to the bank, so that's where I'm going to start targeting them a little more heavy. It's a pretty good start so far. Alright, and here we're going to fast forward through a little bit of unproductive casts. I like keeping this footage in so it's not just fish catch after fish catch, and it lets it be a more realistic view of a day of fishing. I'm getting some bumps on my line. I'm seeing that line just twitch a little bit, but I reel down and I don't have a fish, so I'm just trying to figure out what exactly is down there biting. Tangled up on a leaf right here. Little one. Ah, so there are brim in the area. Let's see if there's another one down there. the constant bang, 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 there was a guy who was working on his house that's right by the water, and that's the noise that you hear just echoing on the water. Here's another little one. Not big enough to keep, but decent little bite. Back in you go, little fella. I really love using these old USA made zebecos. They're good and reliable. So it looks like I'm making a long cast, but I'm really only casting about 15 foot in front of me. And with this muddy river water, that's really all you need. That's a decent sized goggle eye. If we had about 15 of those, that would be a good little mess.
Healthy one too.
Alright, so at this time it's somewhere about 8:30, 8:15. I'm just trying to work this bank here, making casts, and I'm trying to pick off the aggressive fish. I'm not waiting too long for any of them that I may have spooked to come back in and eat. I'm just looking for the aggressive ones. When you're using a tiny split shot and a small hook and not much bait, you really need a whippy rod to make those casts. And the rod that I'm using is fiberglass, and it's very whippy. It's an old rod, but it does the job pretty well. I've said it before, but all I'm looking for is for that line to move any which way. And there's not any current in here, so if that line moves, it is a fish. So this guy in the kayak that you're going to see pass in front of me is my brother. He's out there bass fishing today. And my dad's back behind me trying to catch some white perch. Made it to the end of the lake back here. I know it's not very deep, but it's about 2.5 feet deep. And I'm thinking there may be a brim around this brush pile, so I'm just giving it a little bit of time. Alright, that's a decent little brim. Not huge, but he will go in the cooler bag. I'm really loving this Yak Attack boomstick. The way the camera is back behind me and off to the side a bit, it makes filming so much easier. Now it's time to fish the opposite bank from the one that I just fished all the way back to the ramp. And this bank has more grass and hard bottom and less cypress trees. There's a few houses along this bank here, so it's a little bit different structure. I'm thinking there may be some shell cracker here. Let's see.
Oh, a shell cracker. Not very big. Yep.
And that is a shell cracker or red ear sunfish. They generally like to hang around grassy edges with hard bottoms. So I am keeping fish today as long as they're big enough. So if I could get into some really big shell cracker, that would be a great thing. So I'm going to work this grassy bank here pretty well and see if I can catch any good ones out of here. Man, they're really slow to bite over here.
There we go. A little something. Yeah, good little brim.
Alright, a fully grown brim. Not the hugest brim I've ever seen, but he is big enough to keep. So I tend to be a little bit impatient sometimes, and having to wait while live bait soaks on the bottom sometimes is a killer. The bites that I have been getting seem to be very close to that grass edge, like within inches of it.
Got one messing with it. Got him. Worm. Zebeco. Zebeco. Oh, worm.
Alright, we've gotten just a few fish out of this little location right here. So it seems like these panfish are hanging right on that grass. The bites kind of dried up, so I decided to move on this bank here. There's more grass as I go down. Alright, that's another shell cracker. Notice where that fish came from. He came from that grass, right on that grass edge. Now the problem that I'm going to run into is I found where I believe where the fish are, and I'm using live worms to catch them, live worms that I dug, but I did not dig that many live worms. So I'm slowly running out of bait. I just hope I can catch a few more fish before I run out.
This looks like a good shot.
Don't you just love watching that rod load up and that cast go out? Oh, now this fish feels pretty solid. That's definitely not a little panfish.
I have no idea what that is. Whatever it is, it's pretty good size. Feels like it anyway. What is that? Goodness gracious, what are you? Oh, yeah, a little muddy mud. Bullhead.
That is a bullhead catfish. It's a pretty big bullhead too. Bullhead don't get very long, but they're good eating.
Oh yeah.
This guy will be a nice little addition to our ice bag of fish. He'll go well with our meal.
Let's go.
So another little guy. Any fish is a good fish, but whenever you're running out of bait, you really would like to catch bigger ones than that. Alright, we're down to our last few worms, and I'm getting bumped in here, but I'm not catching anything until I get right up here to this next point. That point right there, where that tree is sticking out. That's not a bad goggle eye. It's hard to tell from the camera angle, but he was a pretty thick little fish. This moment right here, I wish I would have brought my anchor stick, because I'm drifting right over the top of where I caught that fish, but it's too late to do anything about it now. was the last fish that I caught. I ended up using the rest of my worms, and I met with my dad, who was fishing behind me most of the day, and he was burnt out and ready to go home, so away we went. So these are the fish that we ended up keeping for our little fish fry. I hope you enjoyed the video, and thank you for watching. Please subscribe and like if you haven't done so.